Savage and Matthew Peterson here at America Fest, and joining us now is John Strand. He's an actor and a model, and we know him from January 6th. We actually had you on Blaze News tonight, John. You had just been released. You still had the full beard. You came straight into our studios in Dallas. So what has life been like since you were released, since we saw you that day?
Jill and Matthew, thank you so much for having me on today. It has been quite a journey since I started this process, refusing the plea, going to trial, speaking publicly about the fraud of J6 and the weaponization of government, being sentenced to 3 years of prison, being abused in horrible isolation for weeks and weeks and weeks, overcoming that, pressing the appeal to the Supreme Court, being vindicated at the Supreme Court and being released a year later. And I walked out of the jail and into the studios at Blaze, and just, you guys met me and supported me, so thank you so much for that. It was amazing. And since then, I have hit the ground running. I advocate publicly on a daily basis for true justice for J6. We can and we will shift the narrative about this event and what justice actually means. Not just pardons, but exoneration for the innocent and significant restitution to make these people whole because they deserve it and it's the right thing to do, but also because our nation must have a reckoning with the reality of what J6 was and the constitutional implications of the egregious violations committed by the Merrick Garland and Matthew Graves DOJ. And there's real institutional problems that we have to address, so it's a really critical issue.
Let's get into that, John. I mean, first off, we should say a thanks to Steve Baker, who our audience knows, who really brought you in, into Blaze at that time, and it was just a privilege to have you right after you were released. I think the story and the recordings are all online. Blaze, people can watch an interview with Steve, and it tells a lot of the story about January 6th writ large. So let's take this piece by piece. Let's start with the pardons. We'll start with the pardons. There's a lot of ways to do this, right? And a lot of people arguing, and they're going to be arguing in D.C. about how exactly the pardons should go down.
Right.
That they should go down is a must. What are your thoughts about what needs to happen?
So I wrote an open letter to President Trump. It's pinned to the top of my Twitter profile at John Strand USA. And I really urge Americans to read and share that letter. What I detail is essentially a very simple, straightforward way to handle this within President Trump's executive authority. Day one, minute one, an executive order that commutes all sentences and sets everyone free, pre and post-trial. It is egregious that people are being held in prison, sometimes for years, before they're even adjudicated. This is the most un-American thing we've ever heard of. So unlock the gates, open the chains, send them home, set them free day one, minute one. Secondly, an executive order to immediately cease and quash all ongoing prosecutorial action, that they are still arresting people to this day. So those two things instantly must be ended and set right. And then thirdly, to issue a proclamation-style pardon. And we like to use the term proclamation of a pardon of innocence for J6ers who are clearly innocent, myself included, of course, that they would be exonerated in the public's mind. But the proclamation style there's a precedent for that with Jimmy Carter in the draft dodgers for the Vietnam War. And what that does is it allows the pardon to be available for anyone who qualifies for it when it's appropriate, because some of them are still in adjudication. I'm actually in that group. I was vindicated at the Supreme Court and beat the felony, but I still have 4 misdemeanors that I'm appealing. So I wouldn't be able to take a pardon on January 20th because I'm, God willing, going to be completely vindicated pre-pardon. But for many who were coerced into a fraudulent plea, and that's not possible, the pardon is absolutely necessary, it's morally imperative, and a proclamation pardon allows that to be available when they apply for it. And the qualification is very simple. If your constitutional rights were violated, you should absolutely be pardoned, no questions asked. And there are many reasons constitutionally why January 6 cases are invalid and should be nullified. But let's just start with the most simple one. The Sixth Amendment enshrines our guarantee of due process. And the word impartial is included in that amendment. So if you were adjudicated in the District of Columbia, which voted 95% for Biden and Kamala, and is clearly far left, that is the antithesis of an impartial adjudication. And there are 0 January 6 cases that were adjudicated outside of DC. Every single one of them was a constitutional violation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. What about Jack Posobiec was another have been talking about also throwing another punch with some kind of class action lawsuit at some point.
Yeah, so we've been, as a J6 community, we've been talking about this for some time.
Mm-hmm.
And I can inform your audience that there is a group of leaders in the J6 community who are J6 defendants, myself included, that are imminently preparing a strategy to execute this so it will be maximally successful on behalf of J6ers and the justice that actually needs to happen. So stay tuned. We'll be communicating more about that very soon, but lawsuits and justice are coming.
Tell us a little bit more about how you keep in contact with the J6 community and how united you guys are just to go through and fight this to get what you feel like you guys justly deserve.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's also a blessing just that God has knit together so many people from so many different walks of life and areas in America, but of course united by the fire that we've walked through and the pain and suffering that we've endured. It is a very intense thing. So there are a multitude of ways that we coordinate and communicate. We do obviously give thanks to Elon and the restoration of free speech on X. So we stay in communication that way, but there's a need for more communication and community organizing on this issue, and so we're gonna be releasing more information about that in the coming days.
I'd be curious of anything that we could do to help or bring attention to that, because it strikes me that in order to get anything done moving forward, that community organizing, it takes some money and some staffing, and it takes time. I'm aware of that. So let us know how we can help. In terms of what's going on right now in DC, there's a lot, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that's directly relevant to everything that all of you guys have gone through is this FBI director position. And I'm curious your thoughts on that. I mean, Kash Patel is definitely charging forward in the nomination process. Hasn't made any missteps yet.
Yeah.
Is completely gung ho. And is that your guy? I mean, how do you feel about this?
Kash Patel is our guy. Kash Patel is President Trump's guy, so he's our guy, because President Trump is our president. We united in a historic landslide mandate to restore the rightful president back to the position that he has of leadership, and his cabinet needs to be confirmed. The Senate's job is not to obstruct the will of the people. It is to review and consult and give advice to the president and then support him in his clear landslide mandate. And that is what we the people expect and demand. And thanks to X, we are able to exercise our voices and make our demands clear, because it is our country. And President Trump is now our president, and his cabinet should be our cabinet.
But you're not only writing on X, John, you're also writing a book. You've been through so much. There's so much that is going to go into this. Tell us a little bit about Patriot Plea.
Man, thank you for mentioning it. It's a really powerful story. I know, because I just lived through it. It's really exciting. It's also really disturbing. All the details of what I endured, the suffering, the illegalities, the abuse. I name names. Everything is there. It will really shock you. It will disturb you. And that's necessary. Like I said, we need a reckoning with what's happening. But it isn't just a bad story or a tale of travail and terror, but it really is a clarion call to our nation about what America is and how we've lost our way and how we can revive this country, restore what we believe in, not just what we're against, but what we are for, right? And to understand the opportunity and the sacred duty that we have as citizens, what that means and how we grab a hold of it and really restore America to what it was intended to be. It's Patriot Plea.
I mean, I hesitate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Most obvious thing in the world, right, just to the audience out there who I know gets it, the most obvious thing in the world, if we were flipped and on the other side, would be that this is a major motion picture. The most obvious thing in the world. You tell the story, it's compelling, the book comes out, it's going to be compelling, it's true, and then you memorialize that story with all kinds of media. So it makes me sick to even have to say it, but that's the next step, and I'll just say it for you, after we get this book out. All right.
I love it.
John Strand.
I happen to know an actor is ready to play the role.
There it is. Yes,
I've heard
he
this.
can
One available.
play
After I got kicked out of
himself.
Hollywood.
Yes, absolutely.
It's
John,
time to make our own movies.
Where can people follow you?
JohnStrand.com and on X Twitter at JohnStrandUSA.
We will be following your journey because it is an important one. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Matthew. God bless you guys.